Okay, so this is a draw knife that I got at an antique store, and it's cast steel, warranted. I can't read the maker's name, but looks like it's really good steel. And the back was a little bit rusted and pitted, so you can see these very tiny pits, especially along the blade. And what I'm doing is, I've got a sanding block here that I made up of 2 pieces of marble, and I'm using some 80 grit sandpaper here with 3M adhesive slapped onto both sides of this, and it makes a great sanding block because the marble is perfectly flat. I'll just take my draw knife here, and I'll use it just like an axe stone in a circular motion, keeping the marble perfectly flat on that blade. I don't want to rock on the front because it'll round over the blade part. So we'll sand this down. You'd be surprised at how quick this sandpaper can work. So this is just aluminum oxide 80 grit sandpaper, and I recommend you go to an auto supply store to get it, like AutoZone or O'Reilly's or whatever your auto supply store. They'll have a bunch of sandpaper in different grits for sanding metal, and it works really good at grinding down blades. You can use it for scary sharp if you're using sandpaper to sharpen chisels. You can also use it like this in sanding blocks. You can also mount it on a piece of pipe if you have rounded chisels, gouged chisels. You can also mount sandpaper on square dowel to do corner chisels. So, and of course you can mount it on a piece of glass if you want to do it with chisels. So here we're doing the same thing we do as a chisel. We're sanding the back of the draw knife first, getting the back perfectly flat. You'll notice draw knives usually have a slight curve to them. This isn't perfectly flat. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got a slight curve to it. So you don't want to sand that out, but you just want to get all your pits out and get an even scratch pattern with your 80 grit sandpaper before you move on to your finer grit sandpaper. So for an edge tool like this, I might go up to 400 grit, work my way up. So I might go, after 80 grit, I might go to 120, and then 220, and then maybe 400. Doing the same thing, it'll get the back of the blade shiny. All these scratches will be buffed out with the finer grits, and you'll be left with a really smooth, shiny, flat back to the edge tool. So I'm going to continue with the 80 grit here until I get all those pits out before moving on to the finer grit. So after I'm done with that, I'll flip it over and I'll do the bevel of the tool. You can use the same sanding block, or for the bevel you can also use an axe stone, but I've found that the sanding blocks work better because these edge tools are a lot harder than the steel in an axe, which is designed for impact strength. So this steel is a lot harder to grind down with an axe stone than than an axe would be. So the aluminum oxide, or there's other different carbide sandpapers that work really well. I think they cut a lot faster, so less time sharpening your tools is better. They also, with the finer grits, can provide a better edge than your stone can. So that's kind of why I prefer sandpaper. So that's my tutorial on how to sharpen a draw knife.